Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to Sights Less Seen, where I visit those maybe not so well-known places you may not find in the normal tourist guide. Today, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, sitting in front of a falls on the Reedy River. Now, this park here is a beautiful park, and it's in one of the bigger cities in South Carolina, Greenville. Now, if you come to Greenville, you definitely need to come here to the falls and look at this and walk around the park a little bit, because I tell you, it is very relaxing, very pretty. But this isn't the only thing we're going to see. There are a couple other places here I want to show you that you may not know about. Before we visit Falls Park on the Reedy, let's visit the Sigal Museum. Now, I did not really expect to enjoy this museum that much, but I was totally wrong. It is extremely interesting and educational. The museum's mission is to collect and preserve historical musical instruments, objects, and information which they hope will be of interest to people of all ages. The museum was created in 2017, so it's a pretty new addition to the Greenville area. Originally called the Carolina Music Museum, it resides in a former Coca-Cola bottling plant. In 2020, the name was changed to honor Marlo A. Sigal and his family, who contributed their entire collection of over 700 musical instruments to the museum. Additionally, they provided a generous endowment to provide ongoing operational support. An interesting note about Marlo Sigal is that he graduated from Harvard University. He played saxophone in the marching band, and he marched in at least one game every year for a record 66 years. The museum is located on 2 floors, and you will be so immersed in the exhibits that it will take you a couple hours to go through it all. You'll want to read the fascinating information on every exhibit there. Now, the first floor contains what you might call the permanent exhibits, while the second floor rotates different themes every few months. When I was there, the second floor was an exhibit of different instruments from around the world, from hundreds of years ago to today. Each instrument has information on it, including where it came from and its history. All of them are in working order and occasionally are played in concerts. An interesting feature of some of the instruments is the presence of a QR code, which, when you scan it, will provide a short musical score played on that instrument. Among the collection is a 1761 Jacob Kirkman harpsichord, owned by Queen Charlotte, given to her as a wedding present by King George III. It was played by Mozart, who was only 8 years old at the time, while his family was in London during their grand tour. This 1769 Taskin harpsichord is very ornate, as is this 1784 Steinway, something you don't see in hardly any of today's instruments. This 1845 John Broadwood and Sons grand piano was played by Frederick Chopin in May 1848 during his tour of Great Britain. Here's a Spanish clavichord made around 1780 and used in a monastery in Avila, Spain. Clavichords were used as a practice instrument and for aiding in composition, since it wasn't very loud. The sound was made by striking brass or iron strings with metal blades. Remember what I said earlier about scanning the QR code? Well, if you scan the QR code for this clavichord, you can hear what it sounds like. In the mid-19th century, special guitars are made for women. Their small sizes made it easier to play and to transport from location to location. This John Preston guitar has, which at the time was unique, an apparatus that allows tuning with a small key. This is a rare complete set of 5 early saxophones, made by Adolphe Sax, the inventor of the saxophone. These were made in France in his workshop around 1846. This square piano was made around 1824 by Thomas and John Loud in Philadelphia. This particular piano was made specifically for the visit of General Lafayette for his return to the U.S. after 40 years. And this virginal piano was made by Giovanni Baffin of Italy around 1575. What's really interesting is that it comes out of its case like a guitar. As I mentioned, the second floor exhibits during my visit were instruments from around the world, many over 100 years or so old. Now, I have to say that I thought this next instrument was a myth, but I'm totally wrong. The hurdy-gurdy first appeared in European countries around the 12th century. Initially associated with folk music and peasantry, it eventually became popular enough that wealthy members of a French court learned to play it. More ornate models like this guitante were made to sell to more prosperous clientele. The serpent trumpet was made during the 19th century in Western Europe. It's a low-pitched wind instrument, a somewhat distant ancestor to the tuba. A thumb piano, such as this one, is from the late 19th century from Africa. However, they did appear about 3,000 years ago. It's played by plucking the tines with the thumbs and the right forefinger. The gaikim is a Korean plucked zephyr with 12 strings. Developed by King Kasi around the 6th century, it typically accompanies court music, chamber music, and lyric songs. Well, I hope this gives you an idea of what's in the museum, and I hope it perks your interest enough to visit. Keep in mind that I'm only showing you a very few of the several hundred different instruments owned by the museum. While you're there, talk with the employees. They are extremely knowledgeable about the various instruments and can enthusiastically give you the lowdown on each one, along with the history of the museum itself. As I mentioned before, I thoroughly enjoyed this museum, and I would definitely come back to it anytime I'm in the area. Now that you've spent some time at the Sigal Music Museum, and maybe even visited the Upcountry History Museum right next to it, it's time to relax a little. Falls Park on the Reedy River in the historic West End district of Greenville is the perfect spot. It's a beautiful, quiet, and relaxing 32-acre park with inviting trails and gardens to greet visitors that lead off to a revitalized Main Street with local shops, craft beer pubs, and a global array of restaurants. Considered the birthplace of Greenville, the park was founded in 1967 with reclaimed land that had been previously used by textile mills. You can even see some of the original walls of the first grist mill built here in 1776. It's a favorite of both locals and visitors alike. The park features beautiful stonework, walking trails, waterfalls, picnic areas, and lush gardens, all complemented by the graceful architecture of the Liberty Bridge. The bridge is a 355-foot-long suspension bridge, supported by cables on only one side, giving an unobstructed view of the falls. The 2-acre Petrick's Garden, which serves as the park's main entrance, honors a former community leader instrumental in the establishment of Falls Park. As I've mentioned before, visiting the Sigal Music Museum is an extremely interesting and informative stop in Greenville. Now, there are a few other places in Greenville also that will make your stop there well worthwhile. There's the Shoeless Joe Jackson Home Museum. He has the 4th highest batting average of all of Major League Baseball, but he's primarily remembered for his part in the fixing of the 1919 World Series. The Children's Museum of Greenville is one of the largest children's museums in the world and was the first children's museum to be recognized as a Smithsonian affiliate. It houses more than 80,000 square feet dedicated to excellence in play-based learning for children from 0 to 12 years. The Greenville Museum of Art provides almost 70,000 square feet of exhibition, education, and storage space. In 1985, the museum refined its collections policy to focus on creating a comprehensive survey of American art using Southern-related examples. And the Christ Episcopal Church, built in 1825, with beautiful stained glass windows and a huge golden and wood organ. Now, I consider Greenville sort of the hidden gem of South Carolina. I mean, people come to South Carolina, they go to Myrtle Beach, they go to Charleston, they go to Hilton Head. But I'll tell you what, a stop at Greenville, even just to see the Sigal Music Museum, is well worth your time. This is Steve. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time on Sights Less Seen.